Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle and welcome to the National Parks Expedition Challenge. So today we're in Keweenaw National Historical Park in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we're here with historical architect John Arnold. John, thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Well, thanks for having me. This is fantastic. I love to share the place with people.
Well, I'm excited for you to share it. I do notice that I get to wear this awesome hat today.
Yeah, we need the hard hats for safety. Historical industrial site, and some of the buildings are in slight disrepair.
Okay, next time I want a pink one, but we'll go with yellow for today. Before we get started, John, can you tell us how you got into the national parks?
Yes, it's actually kind of a long and interesting story.
That's okay.
I'll give you the abbreviated version. I started out studying biology because I really like stomping around in the woods, being in nature. Spent a long time trying to get through that undergraduate degree before I determined that I really wanted to be an architect. Shifted gears, went into architecture school, went through the entire program, received my licensure, went out into the world of architecture, was acting as an architect for 15, 20 years before I kind of started to understand I didn't have a very strong comprehension of the history of architecture because I hadn't paid attention to that part in school. So I wanted to go back and learn more about that, but rather than going and studying history from books, I wanted to study buildings. So I studied historic preservation, and that put me into a position where I could use my architecture training and my understanding of history to work on actually preserving important historic sites in America.
Is this your first national park site?
It is. I've been with this park for just 3 years now, and I lucked out. I think it would be one of my favorites if I didn't, even if I hadn't visited them all,
Well, we are actually in a different place than the Keweenaw, and let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
Keweenaw is a hard word to say, and you gave me a little trick earlier. So what is that trick?
Keweenaw, this is how I explain it to folks. Key, like a door key, and then a win, and then, because this place is so magical, aww.
Keweenaw, I like it. So we're actually at a partner site right now. Can you tell us where we are?
Well, we're an unusual park in many respects. There are 2 units to Keweenaw National Historical Park. There's the Calumet unit north of here and Quincy unit, which includes the site that we're on now. Those unit boundaries actually include most of the property within those boundaries is not park owned. We only own 6 buildings and a couple of hundred acres. So we have formal partnerships that help us to extend the reach of our storytelling and also help places that own these sites to be kind of umbrellaed under a single organization so that they can get the word out about themselves. The Quincy smelter site where we are now is actually owned by our formal partner, the Advisory Commission.
And what is this place? Tell me what we would find here.
Well, this is an historic copper smelter site. This is actually, we believe, the last in the world of this era and type. There were hundreds of them in Wales, Cornwall, all of which have been demolished. But the same technologies were used here at around the same time, turn of the last century. And this one, for a variety of reasons, still stands largely intact. So this is a part of a copper extraction, refinement, and sales process that the Keweenaw was really devoted to for about 100 years, a little less, and then the peak of that was in the middle third. Pulling copper from the earth, removing the copper from the rock, refining that copper into a pure form, and then shipping it for sale. And so we're at the stage where we're taking the rock, which has already been crushed, heating it up, and pulling out the metallic copper, casting it into bars or sheets, and then shipping it out on the waterway.
So is this still happening in the country? Are there still?
There are smelters, they're not like this,
Okay.
and they're not here. The profitable copper extraction ceased here in the late 60s. There's still plenty of copper under the ground here. It's just really expensive and difficult to get right here. There are other places that it's more profitable, and that's where the companies have moved to.
So no one is actively searching for copper in this area?
Oh, there are.
They are.
There are. There's still copper there, and there's some clever folks working with technologies to do what they can to revitalize the industries. Not right here, but nearby, within 100 miles.
Okay. Well, right across the river here, we see a lot of hotels and development. Why is this still here? Why isn't this a new hotel?
One of the amazing things about the Keweenaw and our two park units is also one of the sad things about Keweenaw, in that once this single industry, essentially copper production, left in the late 60s, there was just no money and very few people. And so most things were spared the wrecking ball simply by virtue of no competition for the land. Nobody wanted the space. These things were just sort of left to rot, and we see this again in other communities around the area. What that means now is that as people are discovering the area and its wonders and are wanting to come here, we're working collectively to be very careful to preserve everything from the past that we can and still grow in a very careful and thoughtful manner so that we can preserve and appreciate the past while having a functional present and a hopeful future.
So as we talk about these buildings, they're all different. And I'm sure they had different purposes here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is one of the really neat things about industrial sites in particular, that really what we're standing in is the middle of a machine. And each of these, instead of thinking of it as a building, you can think of it as a part of the process, as a part of this machine, almost like watch parts that are scattered around a table. Each individual one doesn't have a lot of meaning on its own, but together they're this system. So on the far side of this site, copper sand actually came in on rail cars. It was melted in a furnace building, refined. The waste products were dumped to the side. Those waste products were then picked up, re-refined to extract still more copper, and moved on down the line. Pretty much that's the essence, is heating up sand, pulling out copper, and shipping the copper. All of the other buildings that we see are support buildings that house people and processes to help that all along in the right order and also maintain quality. So there's an assay office over here where chemists and scientists would look at what was coming out of the smelter process to make sure that everything was, well, we're extracting as much copper as was possible, really.
So they're quite old, and you said they stopped in the 60s. So how old are these buildings?
These buildings were built in beginning 1898, turn of the century. Most of them have been serially changed over time by the company, just in order to keep up with changing technologies, and not a whole lot of thought about the past or the future, really about keeping everything going in the most efficient and profitable manner possible.
Well, you're an historical architect.
Right.
What is your job? I mean, are you taking care of these buildings? Are you helping get roofs on them? What exactly do you do?
So, as I mentioned earlier, the park itself only owns 6 buildings, and those 6 buildings right now are in pretty darn good shape. The park has been in place since 1992. So now that we have our own mask on, right, and we're able to help more vigorously, I would say, with all of the partners and communities that surround us. So as an architect for the park, I'm actually helping provide technical assistance to our partners. Well, almost more of an outreach sort of position than taking care of our own things at this point. That's a matter of maintenance now. So putting roofs on buildings is a great example. There are a number of buildings in Calumet that actually would really benefit from that. So part of what I do is matchmaking, find a building that needs some assistance, or I'm approached by the owner of a building that needs assistance, help them find funding, if at all possible, which is sometimes possible, but mostly help them to make good decisions that look out for the long-term welfare of the building, as well as honor its past.
Well, obviously they want the story, or you want the story to continue to be told here. What will these look like in 20 years? Any ideas?
Well, hopefully not too much different, just a little more shored up. We've been working steadily for decades now as money and time become available to essentially stabilize the buildings in place. So that would include things like some re-roofing, some re-siding. We've enclosed all of the open windows and doors with panels. It's called mothballing, essentially, just keep the building from deteriorating any further. And then steady incremental progress in repointing, which is shoring up masonry and failing mortar joints. Small things like that. It's almost akin to brushing your teeth or something. It's just little bits of maintenance over time to keep things as they are.
So do people come out here and visit?
Yes, this is a very popular site, actually.
And I saw at the front office that they had tours here, and then I also have heard that there are some events that happen here. Can you tell us about an event that might happen in October?
Yeah, so this is actually really fantastic. One of our formal partner sites, the Quincy Mine Host Association, has been partnering with Michigan Technological University for years now to create and conduct what they have been calling haunted mine tours, which is really just a haunted house underground. And in the last several years, they've taken that a step further and have been having haunted smelter tours, which is not really a tour, it is definitely haunted.
It is definitely haunted?
Oh, it's haunted.
Oh, we'll have to check that out. So we're here at this area, this smeltering place, but we also have this other unit or two. Tell us a little bit about what we would find there.
Sure. So actually, smelting at the smelter site here is just one phase of the overall process of copper extraction. There's mining, and there's a mine that can be visited up on the hill. There's a milling section of the process, which is largely unavailable in the area. Actually, that's one of the things that we've lost more than anything. Smelting and shipping, and that's essentially what the Quincy unit is devoted to exploring. Now, the Calumet unit includes the town of Calumet, which was it's an actual town immersed in and surrounded by industry. There's the Mine Street Corridor, it's called, which once had mines very frequently. These are actual operating underground mine shafts. Management offices, housing, a functional downtown, a church square, and a public park, all within very short walking distance. You can imagine what that might have been like to live in 100 years ago.
So I'm assuming these towns were built up in answer to the people that came to work in the mines. Is that how they were built?
Exactly. In some situations, a mining operation would actually plat and build houses for their workers in an attempt to keep folks happy and around. In other cases, it was a partial response to a growing community. Business owners would see an opportunity and move in to build something to take advantage of that opportunity.
So in my mind, I'm thinking that Keweenaw, I got that little thing in my head now, is dedicated to preserving these stories, the copper mining stories here. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. This is the story of copper, but it is complicated. It's more than just pulling copper from the earth. It's folks from a number of countries at the turn of the century coming to America to try to improve their station and find a new place in a new world. It's about the electrification of the United States. I mean, before we had wires networking America, the most of the copper was for ships' hulls or pots and pans. There's only so much copper that's needed for that, but it was this boom of electrification and communication that really allowed the Keweenaw to have a market to sell its copper in.
With all of these people coming in here and all of these stories being told, the preservation of those stories are important, and I'm sure that's what is interpreted here. But are you also facing any challenges here at this park?
I think that our primary challenge is the scope of the story and the breadth of the landscape that it covers. It is vast. It is from the tip of the Keweenaw all the way down, well, to the base. I mean, it's about 100 miles by about 35 miles, something like that, of interconnected industrial sites and communities and people. And it, as I was saying earlier, with anyone building at the smelter site, it's impossible to look at any one little piece and come away with an understanding. So it's a challenge to communicate and share the expanse of it and the importance of it that comes from that. That's what made this place what it is today. I think other challenges include telling stories that haven't been historically told. Underrepresented peoples, the thousands of years of Native American history in the area are undertold. These are challenges that we're rising to. There's always more to flesh out and understand in the area.
That's a huge undertaking for a park, but also for the people that live around it. And in general, how do we tell stories of people that are underrepresented? How do we tell stories that expand a large geographic area? So I've got some people that can help with that. So kids, I think we have a challenge for you. We are going to think about this place in its entirety as a story to be told. Now, John, an historical architect, preserves buildings. We want you to be a historical architect of stories. So we want you to research this place from the 1800s to now. We want you to think about the people that came from other countries to find fortune here. So we want you to think about the people whose stories have not been told yet. And we want you to create a story of this place that you can share with historical architect John and the rangers here. Find those stories that need to be elevated and celebrated. And then we're going to ask you to look in your own communities. We want you to look at the buildings that are around, the ones that have been there for a long time, and dig a little deeper into the stories of the people that occupied those buildings. So we're going to tie all of this to UN Global Goal number 11, which is Sustainable Cities and Communities. We're going to talk about the buildings and the people behind the buildings. We're going to ask that you share your projects with us. You're going to find all of the social media contacts at the bottom of the screen, especially sharing those with the park here and with John, because he wants to hear your ideas of how they can continue to tell the stories of these places. John, this is a much bigger place than I had originally thought when we were coming here, because you add in this breadth of stories that are told and untold here. I think it's going to be a good challenge for our kids, because I think they're going to learn a lot about this place, and then they're also going to have this sense of, I need to make sure that stories are being told. I need to look around my classroom and find kids that are, maybe their stories haven't been told, and reach out to them. We talk about in our work that we want kids to be good humans. And being a good human means that we honor all stories. Is that okay with you that we try that for here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful approach.
I think so too. Now, as I told you before, you're only one of 2 historical architects that we've ever worked with before. So I know we have some kids right now that like to doodle all the time or build and thinking, hey, I think I might have found my place in the National Park Service. So can you look in that middle camera right there and just give some kids a little advice about what they should do if they want to enter into a career like this?
I think keep doodling. That is one of the key features, is looking and seeing and thinking carefully about the world around you. Study math, study writing, study reading and history. Even though I didn't do well at it, here I am doing it. Believe in yourselves. It really goes a long way.
So you said that history you didn't do as well in, but now you're doing it. You are an historical architect telling the story of this amazing place. Like this is your playground. This is your workspace. So I hope you heard John, because he talked about how he didn't do well in history, but now he's working in a place that is all about history. So perseverance is the word that I think of. You kept to it, and now you have this amazing place that you work at. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I love the hat. I think I look pretty good in it.
You can keep it.
Thank you. But I just really appreciate your willingness to let us come here, and then your story, which is a little different from other park staff that we've worked with. You were in this career and then you moved here. So good luck, and especially with the 10 to 12 feet of snow that you guys get.
It's about 300 inches, yeah.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yes, you might be hidden in that. So you might want to change the color of your hat.
I'll go with pink.
Yeah, go with pink. Again, kids, thank you so much for joining us at Keweenaw National Historic Park in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Until next time, this is Dr. Drizzle and historical architect John, and we are out of here.